Tonight, the U.S. is ramping up pressure on Venezuela with more high-stakes moves on the open sea.
This is another ship that was basically operating in the black market.
Authorities seize another oil tanker linked to the country as tensions escalate and questions grow about Washington's real motives. A day of reflection in Australia, 1 week after the deadly Hanukkah shooting.
Australia was always the lucky country for Jews, but sadly, no more.
The anguish, the outrage, and calls for change. And the hit Canadian TV show Breaking Barriers on the Ice.
It's so nice to see romance depicted so well.
The steamy hockey romance scoring big with fans.
From CBC News, this is The National with Ian Henemansing.
U.S. officials say they're in hot pursuit of another oil tanker. They believe it's shipping oil for Venezuela. If captured, it would be the third vessel they've seized in less than 2 weeks. The Bella One, sanctioned by the U.S. for shipping oil to Iran, did not stop off the coast of Venezuela, and now it's on the run. After another vessel, the Centuries, was seized yesterday. And the Skipper, also sanctioned, was taken by U.S. forces on December 10. Signs of blockade threatened by Donald Trump against Venezuela could be taking shape. And as Karen Pauls explains, it's also raising questions about where this intensifying pressure is going.
Amidst the massive U.S. military buildup in the Caribbean, officials say they have another oil tanker in their sights in pursuit of the Bella One, spotted leaving Venezuela. This after seizing a different oil tanker earlier this weekend, a Panamanian-flagged ship in international waters. The White House says the oil in that tanker was headed to a country under sanctions.
This is another ship that was basically operating in the black market.
The interceptions come just days after U.S. President Donald Trump announced what he called a blockade of all sanctioned oil tankers leaving and entering Venezuela. And after the U.S. seized a sanctioned oil tanker, the Skipper, earlier this month, an escalation of his pressure campaign on Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. U.S. forces have already killed more than 100 people in strikes on boats the Pentagon links to drug trafficking. But U.S. lawmakers are concerned there's another motive.
Susie Wiles, the chief of staff, says it's about regime change. That's what this is about. And then President Trump tells you and others it's about oil. They took our oil and we want our oil back. What is it?
The United States.
This former Canadian ambassador to Venezuela believes Trump's goals are ultimately about putting the U.S. in control of the entire continent.
I think they've chosen Venezuela because it's the weakest country that it can have this show of force to demonstrate to all the other countries of the Americas.
Experts say it has global implications.
The type of pretense that the U.S. is using to sanction these ships is also being done, for example, by the European Union to sanction Russian ships who are basically carrying oil. And as you know, even Ukraine is now claiming that it has the right to actually blow up some of these shadow fleets, etc.
Ian, the Venezuelan government hasn't yet responded to Sunday's pursuit, but it has previously described the seizure of oil tankers as acts of piracy and international terrorism.
With all this military activity, Karen, we still don't know what the Trump administration's next step is going to be.
No, the former ambassador we spoke to said he observed Maduro closely for years, and he believes the president won't be pressured or intimidated into leaving. He'd rather die in office and would have to be physically forced to go. Ben Rosewell says a quarter of the U.S. Navy is off the coast of Venezuela right now, but they'd need several 100,000 more troops on the ground to do the job. And, you know, it's not clear if Donald Trump, who calls himself the peace president, is willing to go that far. Ian?
Karen Pauls in Washington. The Trump administration is defending itself against mounting criticism tonight after its limited release of investigative documents related to the late financier and convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein.
The statute also requires us to protect victims. And so the reason why we are still reviewing documents and still continuing our process is simply that, to protect victims.
That rationale also used to defend the removal of more than a dozen files from the release on Saturday. including one that appeared to show Donald Trump.
It has nothing to do with President Trump.
But the fact that only a tiny fraction of the hundreds of thousands of documents promised have been revealed, many heavily redacted, and with little information on who investigators had linked to Epstein's alleged crimes, has raised doubts among some Epstein survivors.
There's been a lot of effort and money and time put into redactions, not to protect victims, but to protect people in power.
Who are we trying to protect? Are we protecting the survivors, or are we protecting these elite men that need to be put out there?
The yeas are 427, the nays are 1.
Lawmakers say they're considering charging top officials with contempt for violating the law they passed to force the disclosure.
Laid on the table.
And I won't be satisfied until the survivors are satisfied.
This shouldn't be a big document up. There's a pretty simple point. Who raped these young girls? Who covered it up? And why are they getting away with it?
The Trump administration says more files will be released in the coming days and weeks. The Prime Minister is pushing back against any suggestion he's abandoning the fight against climate change. In a year-end interview with CBC News, Mark Carney also defended his energy deal with Alberta. Olivia Stefanovich has a reaction tonight, including from the leader of the Green Party, who calls it a betrayal.
The Prime Minister insists he's still committed to fighting climate change, even as Mark Carney faces increasing scrutiny suggesting otherwise.
This government is 100% focused on doing things that are going to reduce emissions. We are going to grow clean energy in this country at a scale never seen before.
But in a year-end interview, Carney told CBC News chief political correspondent Rosemary Barton a new bitumen pipeline may also be in Canada's interest.
And if we can do it in a way that is supported, Indigenous peoples as full partners, British Columbia, Alberta.
Carney already faced pushback for rolling back environmental policies, including the consumer carbon price. But the agreement the Prime Minister signed with Alberta, paving the way for a potential new pipeline, pushed environmentalist Stephen Guilbeault to resign from cabinet.
Him and I have a different view of how we should go about fighting climate change.
Carney says he would have liked to have seen Guilbeault stay on. He says he knew what was in the Memorandum of Understanding with Alberta.
And elements of the MOU were changed, consistent with his views.
I'm troubled by the discrepancies.
Ms. May.
Green Party leader Elizabeth May says Guilbeault personally asked for her vote on the federal budget in exchange for climate assurances, later reversed in the MOU.
But this is particularly difficult because I was a participant in enough of those discussions to feel betrayed.
We have too much regulation, not enough action.
The Prime Minister says climate policies introduced by former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government aren't working, and a new approach is needed.
So far, all we're getting is talk, and the talk that we're hearing, it does not line up with fighting climate change. In fact, it's going in the wrong direction.
In his year-end interview, Carney referenced new data from the Federal Environment Department. It shows Canada is falling well short of its 2030 climate goal, only halfway towards achieving a 40 to 45% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions below 2005 levels. But what Carney didn't say is whether he has a plan to put those targets back on track.
And so, Olivia, what is the Prime Minister saying about his climate plan?
Well, Carney says his government will release a strategy on climate and a separate one on nature early in the new year. And this will be Carney's big opportunity to demonstrate he can turn what he says about climate into action.
Olivia Stefanovich in Ottawa. And later in the hour, we'll have more of that conversation between our chief political correspondent, Rosemary Barton, and the Prime Minister. That's coming up in about 20 minutes. Australia's Prime Minister was booed at a vigil held at Bondi Beach a week after the deadly attack there. But as Michelle Song shows us, unity was a focus as the country observed a national day of reflection.
Consoling and remembering, more than 10,000 people gathered on Sydney's Bondi Beach for a vigil, lighting candles and observing a minute of silence. Exactly 1 week after 2 gunmen opened fire on a Jewish festival, killing 15 people.
Australia was always the lucky country for Jews. But sadly, no more.
With snipers watching and police boats in the water, security was tight, yet the feeling of safety shattered for Australia's Jewish community.
He rolled down the window and asked somebody what was happening, and they were like, it's a shooter.
Flowers laid out on the beach honor those killed, including 10-year-old Matilda, Rabbi Eli Schlanger, and Holocaust survivor Alexander Kleitman. But in the sadness, there is anger too. Australia's Prime Minister was booed at the event. Critics say he hasn't done enough to curb anti-Semitism.
Our Prime Minister has not been great. He has not been present.
He has since vowed to strengthen hate laws and launched a gun buyback program, while New South Wales legislators are reconvening early to debate new gun limits.
This crime was an attempt to marginalise and scatter, to intimidate and cause fear.
There were cheers for the father of Ahmed al-Ahmed, the Muslim man credited with saving countless lives when he disarmed one shooter. His words read to the crowd.
Quote, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted. Today, I stand with you, my brothers and sisters. Thank you, Ahmed."
One young survivor reminded mourners to search out light over darkness.
We're obviously mourning, but we're getting stronger as a nation, and we're growing, and sometimes growing hurts, but we're growing.
And light did shine. The menorah lit at Bondi, where it could not be lit just a week ago. Michelle Song, CBC News, Toronto.
At least 9 people have been killed in an attack at a pub in South Africa after police say about a dozen gunmen swarmed in and opened fire.
Currently, the motive is still unknown. We appeal to our community to assist us.
At least 10 other people were wounded. Police say the gunman didn't only attack in the building itself, but also random people on the street. This is the second mass shooting in the country in 3 weeks. Privacy advocates are raising concerns tonight as hundreds of extra surveillance cameras are installed in Vancouver ahead of FIFA World Cup games planned for next year. Yasmin Hanea shows us why artificial intelligence may heighten the risk.
With just under 6 months to go until Canada co-hosts the 2026 FIFA World Cup, Vancouver is getting ready to keep closer watch on the public, installing roughly 200 closed-circuit surveillance cameras in areas tied to World Cup activities.
I think it'll definitely make everyone feel safe.
I guess it depends on where the data eventually ends up and what it's used for.
The Vancouver Host Committee says the cameras are required under its contract with FIFA. It says they're temporary and will be used strictly for public safety, then removed once the World Cup ends. But that's not reassuring to some.
It's really concerning to me that an international sporting organization can dictate what people in Vancouver can do in their public and shared spaces. It's really turning that into a FIFA space.
Canada's other FIFA host city, Toronto, also says it will install CCTV cameras.
It's less about the camera technology than what can be done with the data that is captured by the cameras.
Privacy experts warn surveillance footage can contain highly sensitive information. Artificial intelligence makes you even more vulnerable.
It can track your face, it can track your gait, how you walk, it can collect voice data and even your voice prints.
The city of Vancouver says access to the footage will be limited to authorized personnel and handled in line with city policy and privacy law. But it also confirms footage may be shared with FIFA and security contractors, raising further concerns.
FIFA is not a Canadian public body. Security contractors, they may or may not be based inside of Canada. Hopefully they are.
For now, the city says cameras are still in the testing stage and all images captured will be blurred during that phase. The surveillance system is expected to be in full operation when the World Cup kicks off in June. Yasmin Ghanea, CBC News, Vancouver.
Thousands of customers were still without power today across Atlantic Canada after a windstorm blew through this weekend. Gusts topping 120 kilometers an hour, toppled trees into power lines, and even snapped some hydro poles. At the height, there were more than 250,000 outages throughout the region. A breakout Canadian TV show is having a breakaway moment. Heated Rivalry tells the story of two male hockey players in a secret love affair. And as Sarah Levitt explains, its latest episode is a big hit with viewers.
A public kiss with an epic audience reaction. A moment from the red-hot Canadian TV series Heated Rivalry, all about gay but closeted professional hockey players, featuring hits, goals, and steamy sex scenes.
Will we seeing each other a lot?
The series, based on Halifax writer Rachel Reed's Game Changers books, is making waves and taking social media by storm. Its latest episode is one of the highest rated of all time, according to the website IMDb. The show's hype welcomed by those playing in the Toronto Gay Hockey Association.
It's giving representation for the sport, right? It's really cool to see queer people in hockey, because just look at our league. We exist.
The show, though, doesn't shy away from the hardships, chronicling the struggle of the two main characters as they come to terms with their queerness and the potential damage it could do to their careers.
I think it gives a good visibility to the truth that's out there. There's probably some players that can't come out because of the toxic masculinity environment or just the hockey culture.
There has never been an openly gay player in the National Hockey League.
Our goal really isn't more out NHL athletes or out football athletes. It's more so around you can be your true self. And if that's just to your teammates in the locker room, if it's just a coach, if it's just to yourself, that's really what the goal is.
It's so nice to see romance depicted so well.
Ultimately, though, this content creator says driving the show's success is that people are suckers for love. Clearly on display as he filmed the crowd's reaction watching the show in this Los Angeles bar.
These stories feel so tangible. It doesn't matter what kind of sexual orientation you have or what kind of human being you are. Love is so transcendent.
Heated Rivalry has already been renewed for a second season, meaning the love will continue to burn on for now. Sarah Levitt, CBC News, Montreal.
It's now been more than 250 years since the birth of Jane Austen, but it seems she's just as popular as ever.
A lot of the issues they go through really do relate to people like now who are reading it.
Why the author's work is still resonating. Plus, an Italian pizzeria run solely by people with autism.
La mia preferita fra queste due la diversa. That's his favorite.
How the idea became a massive success. And a rare sight while whale watching.
He's going backwards. Why is he going backwards?
We're back in 2.
All suggestions are welcome.
I can help you, Ari.
An emotional send-off last night for Bowen Yang as Saturday Night Live's first Asian cast member made his final regular appearance. Yang joined the show as a writer in 2018 and began performing the next year. The gay actor satirized his own departure in a skit with his Wicked co-star Ariana Grande and music icon Cher. It's been a whole year of celebration for another celebrity from another time. 2025 marks 250 years since famed British author Jane Austen was born. And as Margaret Evans shows us, for many, her stories are as relevant and loved as ever.
We stand on the right, hold the hand.
So Jane Austen, she is, as they say in modern parlance, having a bit of a moment. Born 250 years ago this month, she's been feted in England all year round, from dress-up parties and balls to new editions of old favorites.
Not that she needs the boost.
I'll avert my eyes.
Just ask the cast of Ostentatious, an improv comedy troupe devoted to Austen and filling seats for nearly 15 years.
Because she's funny, she's witty, and she writes about humanities.
I think the thing that we find constantly is that our audience is sometimes better equipped with Jane Austen's work than some of us are.
She's already on the £10 note and is a top member of Britain's literary canon, part of the cultural industry.
Regarded as a medieval lodge.
Drawing tourists to the places she once lived or wrote, like Chawton House.
I think she's terribly relevant today. I think she's marvellous.
Do you dance, Mr. Darcy?
Not if I can help it.
And so do many younger fans, helped along, no doubt, by myriad film and television adaptations.
You have bewitched me, body and soul.
Why is it there are so many unmarried women in their 30s these days, Bridget?
Some easier to recognize than others.
He gave me a C-. Well, he gave me a C, which drags down my entire average.
Film adaptations, they do have it slightly easier in some regards because they can have a soundtrack.
The Jane Austen class at the University of York is one of the most in demand.
Carried away by this kind of romantic hero figure.
Professor Alison O'Byrne admits film adaptations and Austen's reputation as the original rom-com writer are sometimes the draw.
Film critics often talk about Pride and Prejudice as being almost the origin text for every romantic comedy with a kind of battle of the sexes element.
But she says Austen's keen eye for social satire, commentary about the challenges women faced, and the relatability of her characters is what students come away with.
A lot of the issues they go through really do relate to people like now who are reading it.
Family members going, oh, have you got a boyfriend yet? You know, how's your love life going? I think she just gets it. I think she gets what it's like to be a woman.
You expect me to rejoice in the inferior.
And at the end of the day, a good yarn is still a good yarn.
The last man in the world I could ever...
Margaret Evans, CBC News, London.
A father with no cooking experience has opened a successful restaurant operated entirely by people with autism.
Everything about the design of Pizza Out is to avoid stimulus overload for the people who work here.
How the pizzeria was designed to help workers thrive. And pressing the Prime Minister on his first year in office.
We have the best deal of any country in the world.
But that's not what you were elected on.
Rosemary Barton goes one-on-one with Mark Carney. The National breaks down the stories shaping our world. Next. Those cheers are for Michaela Benthaus, the world's first wheelchair user to travel into space. The German aerospace engineer has advocated for accessible space travel since she suffered a spinal cord injury in 2018. Jeff Bezos' company Blue Origin carried the crew far enough to experience a few minutes of microgravity before heading back to Earth. A restaurant in Italy is thriving and gaining attention with a business model based on inclusion. Everyone they hire is on the autism spectrum. Megan Williams shows us how some thoughtful design helps them get the job done.
The doors open, the crowds arrive, and pizzas slide through the oven. No shouting, no clanging plates, just a quiet, confident bustle. Here at the first pizzeria in Europe to employ only those on the autism spectrum. Founder Nico Acampora says his world fell apart when his son Leo was diagnosed with autism. Then, in the middle of one night, an idea struck him. I sat up and said, Stefania, we need to open a restaurant run by people with autism. She said, Nico, you can't even boil an egg. Go back to sleep. 4 years later, Nico runs 2 restaurants that employ more than 40 on the spectrum, with reservations booked weeks in advance.
Everything about the design of Pizza Out is to avoid stimulus overload for the people who work here. So, sound absorption in the acoustics, a ventilation system that removes smells, and just a couple of basic colors on the walls.
With floor tiles and space at the table ends to help staff spatially orient. In the kitchen, pizzas move automatically so they don't burn, and cooks can always see each other.
So this one is called differently, diversamente, and this one is called Napoli Out, like Napoli Autism. Qual è la tua preferita?
La mia preferita fra queste due la diversamente.
That's his favorite.
A few years ago, Lorenzo was miserable in an institution where he would self-harm with forks. Here, he says, he's found purpose and friendship. Recommending antipasti and his favorite Tuscan red. The pizzeria has sparked national awareness of the struggles of those with autism, led to them getting more jobs, and even sparked calls in Canada's Parliament for support for similar ventures. It's also turned Nico Acampora into something of a celebrity. He says his greatest hope is that one day so many restaurants hire people on the spectrum that Pizza Out won't be needed anymore. In the meantime, he's opening a third Pizza Out in Rome. Megan Williams, CBC News, Monza, Italy.
Time now to break down the news shaping our world. Tonight, chief political correspondent Rosemary Barton sits down for a one-on-one interview with Prime Minister Mark Carney. 8 months into his first term, Mark Carney talks about trade, his climate agenda, and more.
Are you comfortable getting a majority government through people crossing the floor?
I am comfortable commanding the confidence of the House.
Carney's Liberals are now a step closer to a majority after 2 Conservative MPs recently crossed the floor. In part 1 of their conversation, Rosemary questions Carney about the ongoing trade war with the United States, the future of the free trade agreement, and building deeper trade ties beyond Washington.
Prime Minister, hello. Thank you for making the time.
Thanks for having me, Rosemary.
You were elected, I think it's fair to say, in part to deal with Donald Trump. But since the election, you have dropped retaliatory tariffs, you've given up the digital services tax, and you apologized for an ad that the Premier of Ontario ran. So I guess Canadians might want to know whether we are any further ahead for doing or not doing any of those things.
Well, we are in a lot better position than we were 9 months ago. The challenge remains that the United States has fundamentally changed its trading relationships with everybody in the world, Canada included. But one of the points I made right from the start when I was running to be leader of the Liberal Party and then running in the general election is we need to control what we can control. We can't necessarily control Donald Trump, I think everyone's figured that out, or the United States of America. What we can control is what we build here at home. You look at the progress we've made, One Canadian Economy Act. Okay, we'll go into this, but it's important to underscore because this is what's going to make the big difference for Canadians.
I get that.
Sorry, may I finish? Which is, so we're made huge progress in terms of building here at home, massive progress on new trade deals and relationships abroad. All of that puts us in a stronger position as a country, more independent, better future, stronger negotiating position with the United States.
And that's the other piece of what you were, that's the other piece that you were elected on. But you were also elected on standing up to Donald Trump and getting a deal with him. And yet, since you've been elected—
And yet we have the best deal of any country in the world,
but that's not what you were elected on. You were elected to get
Was I not elected to get the best deal of any country?
So that's
no, I would have thought—
So that's it, you're done.
Better is always possible, Rosemary. We can always do better than where we are, and we look to do better. But if you look at where we are relative to other countries, 85% of our trade, as you know, is tariff-free. We have unparalleled access relative to other countries, including Mexico, our partner in CUSMA, to the U.S. market. Now, we're just entering the next phase of these discussions, negotiations. There'll be negotiations in the end around the review of CUSMA, which will start early in the next year.
Okay, so let me ask you what you understand Donald Trump's position on CUSMA to be right now. You had that meeting with him and President Sheinbaum not too long ago.
Yes.
At that point, did he say the deal is dead, I'm ripping it up? What indications did you get?
He did not say any of those things. What we talked about, the 2 presidents and myself, we talked about the process for reviewing, renegotiating CUSMA. We talked about potential timelines, although we didn't settle on specific timelines for that. The expectation is that it's going to unfold over the course of 2026. If I'm fortunate to be with you this time next year, we'll be talking about that progress. So that's the first thing. The second is I will refer back to what I just said and what I've been saying from day one. Control what we can control, what we can't. We can't necessarily control. The U.S. objectives do move around in these trade discussions, whether it's with the European Union, Japan, China, Canada. They do move around. Our discussions, my discussions with the President Trump, as have been President Sheinbaum's discussion with President Trump, has been there'll be a review and adjustment to CUSMA, USMCA as the Americans call it. Not that there will be any, as you just said,
leaving it entirely.
Leaving it entirely.
The sectoral tariffs that you seem to be close to dealing with, whether it was reducing them or getting rid of them, is that not part of the negotiation?
That that will necessarily be part of the negotiation. From our perspective, those are hugely important. And look, the United States needs to make a choice around these, which is, does it recognize, appreciate that the U.S. itself is in a stronger position if there is relatively free movement of automobiles, steel, aluminum, lumber, aerospace across the U.S. border or not. And how it views its competitors. Does it view its competitors as Canada, or does it view its competitors as China? And these are perspectives that the U.S. Takes different views on at different points in time, and the CUSMA discussion, that review discussion, will be part of it. In the meantime, what we are going to continue to do is build this country. That's what Canadians want, and we're going to continue to deepen our trading relationships abroad. Both of those things are good in and of themselves, but both of them put us in a stronger position with the U.S. We are in a stronger position today with the United States than we were at the start of the year.
But only because, and I shouldn't diminish it, not only because, but because of what you're trying to do inside the Canadian economy, not because of anything that you've gotten from Donald Trump.
Well, we did get what we got is in August 1st, is the president confirmed that 85% of trade being tariff-free, the best deal of any country with the United States. Having the best deal is pretty good, Rosie. Now, as I said a moment ago, it can be better. It's in, obviously, Canada's interest for it to be better. We will do other things at the same time. We think it's in the U.S. interest as well, but the U.S. will make that choice. It's their decision in terms of how much they want to have an integrated auto industry, which they have had for my entire life. They're taking a different path right now. We'll fight hard to change that opinion, but at the same time, we'll create new opportunities for Canadians.
You seem to get along well with the president. I wonder whether you think that matters, whether that personal relationship that you've developed is helping at all.
I'll refer back to we have the best deal. That's a starting point. I think, look, my view is that the U.S. respects strength. The president respects strength. He respects people. He sees that in you? Well, it's for him to answer. He wants to be a great man like me. That's what he said in public. It's kind of it's a good line. I enjoyed it, at least. And you know, so being direct with him and what our objectives are and how we see it, that's important. But also he respects that the UAE wants to invest $70 billion or intends to invest $70 billion in Canada. He respects that we have launched trade negotiations with India, that we're have a rapprochement with China, that we are deepening our defense partnership with Europe, that we are increasing our defense spending, bringing it towards that 5%. Yes, he does respect those steps that we've taken. All of those steps are in Canada's interest. All of those steps are in Canada's interest, but yes, they respect that.
You talked about China there, so that is also part of, I think, your response to what is happening with the United States, as you said, India and China. This past spring, though, you said that China is Canada's biggest security threat. Does that mean that we are taking a risk by aligning ourselves further economically or otherwise because of that, because it is, in your view, our biggest security threat?
Well, a couple of points here. One is never have all your eggs in one basket. We have too many eggs in the American basket. We would like to maintain that relationship and grow others, but we absolutely need to grow others. And that the S is a capital S at the end of others. So it's India, it's China, yes, it's European Union, it's the UK, it's Thailand, it's Philippines, it's in Africa and beyond. It's Mercosur, the group of all of which we're working on, first point. The risks, and then the question is how deep is the relationship and how clear are the guardrails around that relationship? And there are areas, artificial intelligence, critical minerals, defense, where clearly the security threats are such that we would not have a deep relationship with China in those areas. We would not have deep relationship with many countries in those areas. There's certain partners, European Union is one, UK is another, where we would. We have a strategic question for our country, how deep those relationships are in those areas with the United States, given our deep integration already with the United States and given the shifting trading relationship.
Coming up, do you like this job?
Do I like this job?
More from my year-end interview with Prime Minister Mark Carney.
Prime Minister Carney's plans to connect Canada's economy includes building big projects across the country. And part of that is a new energy deal for Alberta.
What the country is getting out of it is action. Investment in clean energy, investment in nuclear, investment in carbon capture.
And that's where Rosemary Barton picks up the conversation with the Prime Minister on a potential new oil pipeline from Alberta, welcomed by some, criticized by others, including Liberal MP Stephen Guilbeault, who quit cabinet over it.
Stephen Guilbeault resigned from your cabinet, and when he did, he was very critical. What it took to get the deal with Alberta. You had to get rid of suspend clean energy regulations. You had to get rid of or not put in place the cap on oil and gas emissions. You had to say we're willing to not use the tanker ban anymore. There are a lot of Canadians that voted for you based on your bona fides on climate change, and then they see you willing to hand all those things over in order to get some sort of energy deal with Alberta. What do you say to them when they say, we're disappointed, this wasn't quite the person we thought he was?
I'm the same person, same values, care about the issue fundamentally, and because I care about the issue fundamentally, I care about what gets done.
Sure.
Not what is put in regulation, not what is said, not what is prohibited, and then nothing happens.
So you didn't think any of those things were going to happen?
The reality is, look, the reality is there is no carbon capture being built in Alberta. There has not been because of these various measures. There isn't large-scale nuclear being built in Alberta. There are no interties between a clean electricity grid in BC and Alberta, which helps breathe that. The effective carbon price, sorry, may I finish?
Yes.
The effective carbon price in Alberta is only $20 a ton. So what we did with Alberta is to change all of that with the MOU.
Well, except with all due respect, you said you can have a pipeline if you do the carbon capture storage. You said we're not going to put a cap on oil and gas emissions. You have to do a large industrial emitter, and you already had a federal backstop to use to enforce that. So I'm not really sure what you're getting out of it.
We need the investment now.
Yeah.
What the country, it's not about me, what the country is getting out of it is action. The country is getting investment in clean energy, investment in nuclear, investment in carbon capture. Investment in carbon capture, most people will hear that and of course they think, well, what does that actually mean? It means the equivalent of taking 90% of the cars and trucks off the road in Alberta. These are major investments. Listen, we have too much regulation, not enough action. We're meeting on a day when the results of the previous climate plan are being released. And the fact is we're not going to meet our targets under a climate plan that had all the things in it that you said.
When I spoke to Pierre Poilievre recently, his message to you was that if you want a majority, you have to go back to the Canadian people to get it and not do it, by his words, dirty backroom deals. Are you comfortable getting a majority by people crossing the floor?
Well, we're in a parliament, and when we pass legislation, we need more people voting for it than against it. I mean, that's the way. Last time I checked, that's the way Parliament works.
Right, but that's not what you're doing now. Now you're attracting MPs to the party.
MPs are attracted to what we're doing.
So there's no active recruitment happening?
Premiers are attracted to what we're doing.
I want to go back to what my question was, which was, are you comfortable getting a majority government through people crossing the floor?
I am comfortable commanding the confidence of the House of Commons and getting through the House of Commons, getting support in the House of Commons and votes, and obviously votes and support in the House of Commons for legislation that is going to protect Canadian communities, that's going to build this country, that's going to make our country more independent, more sustainable, more prosperous.
Are there active recruitment of MPs from other parties happening?
I think that there is a spectrum of MPs with varying degrees of recognition of the serious situation the country is in.
Mm-hmm.
Varying degrees of recognition that we need action, not slogans, that we need cooperation with the provinces, that we need to come together and work together. Then those individuals face their own decisions about how they can best support that agenda. My job as Prime Minister, our job as the government is to put forward our best view of that agenda. Yes, we will compromise in legislation in committees. You've seen some of that. The border bill, there's compromise on C9, there's other adjustments that have been made in legislation. We will make adjustment for legislation to get through. But yes, if somebody sees that, as Mr. D'Entremont and Mr. Ma both saw, that they can support the broad direction of the government, and they want to join the governing party, then they have and they will, and they're very much welcome.
As you said, you weren't in this space a year ago, the political arena, not formally anyway. You were considering things. I think that's fair to say. What has surprised you about this job? As someone who has led big organizations and done other things, what is surprising about this role?
The main thing that jumps out at me is something I knew but hadn't experienced. So in that regard, it's surprising just how real the relentless nature of the job. It's obviously 24/7, 365, and just the span of issues for which you're ultimately responsible in this role. Of course, the way to run big, complex organizations with many responsibilities is you delegate responsibility and.
Are you good at doing that?
I think I am I think I am, yes. I think there's, well, it's not for me to judge. There are some people who were here under previous governments, previous situations, they can judge the degree of delegation. What will come with that is that people won't always say the same thing and that's great. That's fine. That's healthy. That's normal life. People don't all say the same thing at the same time.
But that is the challenging part of the job, is it not? That sometimes you have people who are not happy with what you're doing, openly critical of it, willing to walk away from cabinet, for instance?
Look, would I rather that, if we bring it back to Stephen Guilbeault, for whom I have tremendous respect, would I rather he had stayed in cabinet? Yes. Would I rather he had been there to see what transpires with the Alberta MOU, to see our climate strategy come out, our nature strategy come out early in the new year, both of which will happen. Yes, so he will continue to inform that, but from farther away. But I respect those decisions, and.
But if that was true, if you wanted him to stay in cabinet, why did you go about it the way you did? Because he didn't know the details.
He knew the details.
So what the things that are out there that he has said are not true?
I don't know I don't follow everything he says, but he knew what was in the MOU. And elements of the MOU were changed, consistent with his views.
So once he saw the deal, you asked him for more input and were willing to change them? Because
I did change some parts of it.
But Alberta was not happy with the changes?
No, they accepted the changes.
Okay, so then what is your understanding of what he wasn't happy with?
Well, these are questions for him.
Well, I asked Mr. Guilbeault, but what did he tell you about things then? What were you not able to give him?
We have a different approach.
Yeah.
We have a different approach. And I think what matters for Canadians, what's ultimately going to matter for the planet, for the climate, what's going to matter for affordability for Canadians, what's going to matter for the competitiveness of our businesses, is, are we actually getting emissions down? Are we actually doing large-scale investment in hydroelectric power, in nuclear? Are we actually doing something which was not on the table this time last year, 50 to 60 gigawatts, which is an enormous amount of offshore wind in Nova Scotia that links in and creates whole new industries? That's what we're working on.
Okay, I'm out of time, but I want to ask you, do you like this job?
Do I like this job? Yes. How's that? How's that? Let's end on a high. It's an important time, and it's a privilege to have it. It's a huge responsibility, but as long as I have it, I'm going to be working flat out on it.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Happy holidays.
Thank you, you too.
Coming up, we continue the countdown of the most popular moments of the year. Tonight, that's an orca making a splash.
You heard that this was like a celebration for a really good hunt.
This rare sighting in our moment. This holiday season, the National is bringing you a countdown of the most popular moments from the last year. We're calling it the 12 days of the moment. Catching a glimpse of an orca is a memorable encounter, but seeing an orca moonwalk, that is tonight's moment.
Seeing it do the backwards moonwalking movement, like, oh my gosh, why is it doing that? Like, I can't believe it's going that way. My partner and I were from Ontario originally, both outdoors enthusiasts. What we've done since we've moved to BC is trying to understand a little bit more about the whales. And this specific moment, my parents were actually visiting. We went to like a nearby beach. There was 2 pods, one of them was breaching. And that's when I captured the video.
He's going backwards. Why is he going backwards?
You can hear my mom and I kind of freaking out. We heard that this was like a celebration for a really good hunt, so a little bit more gruesome, but it looked fun when we were there anyways. It was just great to have my parents see that. Like, they've been seeing all of the kind of adventures we've been doing over the past 4 months. They were freaking out, absolutely. Ready to buy a ticket again next month.
After a show like that, though, for her parents, there is like more than a small chance that it'll be an anticlimax next time. The only thing more interesting than seeing orcas just off the waters of Vancouver is seeing the reaction of people to seeing the orcas. I've seen that a couple of times, and it is absolutely magical. People are so awestruck. From all of us here at The National, thanks for being with us tonight. I'm Ian Hannah-Mansing in Vancouver. Good night.